Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 We're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, entitled The Cause of All Causes, Text 39. It's February 21st, 2020. Rayanam namaskricha naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tatojayam udirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, and to Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta praise for Bhadreshu Nicham Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Patru Bhavati Naisti. So this is text 39 of chapter 5 of Canto 2. Vivayam Janaloka Asya Tapoloka Stanadvayat Mordavi Satyaloka Tu Brahmaloka Sanatana. So there's some communication. Anything for me to attend to? Okay, good. So we'll read the Sanskrit. Vivayam janalokosyam tapolokastanadvayat Murdabi satyalokastu Brahmaloka sanatana Vivayam janalokosya tapolokastanadvayat Murdabi satyalokastu Brahmaloka sanatana Vivayam janalokosya tapolokastanadvayat Mordabi satyalokastu Brahmaloka sanatana
Vivayam janalokosya
tapolokastanadvayat
Mordavi satyalokastu
Brahmaloka sanatana. Would anyone else like to recite the verse?
Vivayam janalokasya
tapolokastanadvayat
Murabi
satyalokastu
Brahmaloka sanatana
Vivayam janalokasya
Vivayam Janalokosya Tapolokastanadvayat Mordapi Satyalokastu Brahmaloka Sanatana Vivayam Janalokosya Tapoloka Sanatvayat Mordapi Satyalokastu Brahmaloka Sanatana
Vivayam Janalokasya
Vivayam Janalokosya
Tapolokastanadvayat
Tapolokastanadvayat
Murdhabi Satyalokastu
Mordapi Satyalokastu
Brahmaloka Sanatana
Brahmaloka Sanatana
Vivayam Janalokosya
Vivayam Janalokosya
Tapalokastanadvayat
Tapolokastanadvayat
Mordapi Satyalokastu
Mordapi Satyalokastu
Ramaloka Sanatana
Brahmaloka Sanatana Vivayam up to the neck Janaloka the Janaloka planetary system Asya of him Tapoloka the Tapoloka planetary system Stanadvayat beginning from the breast Mordhabi by the head Satyaloka the Satyaloka planetary system 2 but Brahmaloka the spiritual planets Sanatana eternal translation from the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Many times in these pages we have discussed the spiritual planets situated beyond the material sky, and the description is corroborated in this verse. The word Sanatana is significant. This very idea of eternity is expressed in the Bhagavad Gita 8.20, where it is said that beyond the material creation is the spiritual sky, where everything is eternal. Sometimes Satyaloka, the planet in which Brahma resides, is also called Brahmaloka, but the Brahmaloka mentioned here is not the same as the Satyaloka planetary system. This Brahmaloka is eternal, whereas the Satyaloka planetary system is not eternal. And to distinguish between the two, the adjective Sanatana has been used in this case. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, this Brahmaloka is the loka or abode of Brahman, or the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual sky, all the planets are as good as the Lord himself. The Lord is all spirit, and his name, fame, glories, qualities, pastimes, etc. are all non-different from him because he is absolute. As such, the planets in the kingdom of God are also non-different from him. In those planets, there is no difference between the body and the soul, nor is there any influence of time as we experience it in the material world. And in addition to there being no influence of time, the planets in Brahmaloka, due to being spiritual, are never annihilated. All variegatedness in the spiritual planets is also one with the Lord, and therefore the Vedic aphorism Ekam Eva Dvitiyam is fully realized in that Sanatana atmosphere of spiritual variegatedness. This material world is only a shadow phantasmagoria of the spiritual kingdom of the Lord. And because it is a shadow, it is never eternal. The variegatedness in the material world of duality, spirit and matter, cannot be compared to that of the spiritual world. Because of a poor fund of knowledge, less intelligent persons sometimes mistake the conditions of the shadow world to be equivalent to those of the spiritual world, and thus they mistake the Lord and his pastimes in the material world to be one with the conditioned souls and their activities. The Lord condemns such less intelligent persons in the Bhagavad Gita 9.11. Apadananti mamuda manushim tamumashrita param bhavamajananto mama bhuta maheshwara. Whenever the Lord incarnates, he does so in his full internal potency, Atmamaya. And less intelligent persons mistake him to be one of the material creations. Srila Sridhar Swami, therefore, rightly commenting on this verse, says that the Brahmaloka mentioned here is Vaikuntha, the kingdom of God, which is Sanatana, or eternal, and is therefore not exactly like the material creations described above. The Virat, universal form of the Lord, is an imagination for the material world. It has nothing to do with the spiritual world or the kingdom of God. Om Jnanatmirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svaya Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yukta Parakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaragana Anvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritina Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gauranga Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanse Kalpata Yugyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi, Haschatya Desha Tarini. Vivayam jana lokosya tapolokastanadvaya Murtadi satya lokastu Brahma loka sanatana. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapoloka, whereas Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Yes, okay. So this is Vedic cosmography. And yes, specifically Brahma is talking about his own planet called Satyaloka, and also Janaloka and Tapaloka. We commonly speak of lower planetary system, middle planetary system, upper planetary system. Upper planetary systems are sometimes called the heavenly planets. And that's generally true, but this Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, this is beyond heaven. Yeah. So we understand these are planets. It's beyond heaven. They're not spiritual yet, but they're even nicer. It's like an even nicer neighborhood in the heavenly planets. And yeah, well, that is that is what these descriptions, because like it's kind of like, all right, so right now, we're in a particular neighborhood, in Switzerland or Florida or England, like that. So we're in a particular neighborhood, and we're a particular neighborhood, a particular environment in this body. And just like, yeah, maybe every few years we think, where do I want to move? Where do I want to move? What neighborhood do we want to move to? Go to Millhop, we're going to go to a different country. Yes. No, so this Janaloka, Tapaloka, it's like nicer than the Millhopper neighborhood.
Oh, no.
We need to try to conceive it. So, all right, so this is like, there's different neighborhoods we can go according to desire and deserve. Well, there are 8,400,000 apartments. There's 8,400,000 types of species or apartments. And within each one of those 8,400,000, there's so much variety. Just like maybe we're all the same human species. I don't quite know. But
Not sure.
yeah, sure. But there's so much variety. Yeah, just like that. So okay. So according to our activity, just like okay. So according to my desire, I'd like to move to that neighborhood in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house with a quarter-acre plot or whatever. Okay. Or you say like, okay, so do I have the funds? Do I have the funds to support that? So similarly, as Dehinosmi Tadehe Komaram Yervanam Jravatadehantra Bhaktir Dirasta Trandamuyati, as the embodied soul continually passes in this body, from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. And that other body, that's the next neighborhood, a particular body on a particular planet. And according to our consciousness, according to the integration of desire and deserve. Example, the intricacies are complicated, but the principles are clear. According to the conscious, yam yam vapi smanbhavam tyajidyantik levram, tam tam eviti quanti sadata bhavavavita. Whatever state of being, whatever consciousness we cultivate in this life, as we were reading this morning before japa, that will tend to influence heavily our consciousness at the time when the soul leaves the body completely, and that'll take us to the next neighborhood, the next apartment. A simplistic example, okay, let's say I desire to live in a particular neighborhood, in a particular house, like that. Wow, he lives, and wow, I wish I had a house like that. Okay, but so I'm really meditating. I've got a consciousness there. Okay, I'm really meditating. Yeah, I wish I could live. Okay, so okay, but let's say I've lived my life like a dirty, toxic slob. Say I've lived my life. I've lived a very dirty life. We can all fill in the details of what that looks like. Okay, but still, I've got this meditation on. Okay, so maybe we will take birth in that home that we're meditating on, but maybe as a cockroach. Okay, not necessarily as the owner, not necessarily as like that. Okay, all right. So these planetary systems, this is above heaven. And again, there's some complexity here, because sometimes we'll hear about the lower planetary systems, below the earthly planetary systems, and it'll describe how it's heavenly. Okay, but actually, just within this universe, there's at least 3 types of heavenly regions. There's heaven, upper planetary systems, demigods. And then right in the earthly sphere, there are heavenly regions. There's like Brahma Varta, where Manu resides. And Brahma has his like vacation house when he visits this planetary system. And then in the lower planetary systems, there's also heavenly regions, okay, where it's
Like blue springs.
it's like there's like like no natural light gets in there, but everything is illuminated by serpents with jewels and things like that. And sometimes I'm reminded of those when I'm in like I'm reminded of the one like I'm in an airport. I remember when I was going, this was 5 years ago, I was going to New Zealand, 4 years ago, and stopped in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles, especially the airport, and it was just happening very late at night. And there's just like this underground, there's just a beautiful, everything was very pristine. And there was just all these shopping, just like that. And there was no consciousness in any of the stores. There's no consciousness of self-realization or God consciousness, but the material comforts were very evolved. The material comforts were very involved, very evolved. Okay, so, all right. So the urging here is, yes, there's this vast cosmos. And there were two verses ago, we heard about the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras, and how they are represented in the universal form. But the idea is everyone should be Brahminical. In human form of life, there's this aphorism. It's the second aphorism in the Vedanta Sutra, and the aphorism is Atato Brahma Jigyasa, which means whatever our human form, in a sense, to be Brahminical in the essential sense, means now that we have the human form of life, now's Atato, now. Whereas, because other species, they don't get to do this. They get to do eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay. And generally, in human society, if we've progressed in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, then that's regarded as, oh, that's very advanced, that's good. But it's basically sophisticated dog, cat life. Okay. So, Bhagavatam, that's not real progress. That's Dvi Paru Pasha. That's two-legged animal life. The special gift, the special opportunity of the human form, Atato Brahmaji, is now we can inquire about Brahma. Now we can inquire about, now we can give our life to go to a neighborhood that's even beyond Satyaloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka. Neighborhoods that are completely spiritual. Because the idea here is even, and it's, we've heard these numbers bandied about sometimes, like in Satyaloka, these upper planetary systems beyond the heavenly planets, the lifespan is hundreds of trillions of years, the lifespan of Brahma, 311 trillion, 40 billion years, like that. But as described here, still there's death and destruction. Still there's death and destruction, which means there's fear. There's fear. And then in the spiritual plane, there's no fear there. Because we're eternal beings. Why do we resist and fear and push away death? It's natural, because we're naturally deathless. We falsely identify the self with this body. And so, what's described in the Bhagavatam, De Pachakala Tradish Vapi, De Pachakala Tradish Vapi Sanyes Vasats Vapi, Desham Pramato Nidanam Pashan Api Napashati. That we endeavor to take shelter for our fulfillment, our security, our peace in what's called fallible soldiers. Pashanapi Napashati, which means even though we have so much experience that it will all be destroyed, so much experience, still we don't have realization, still we act as if I will live in this body forever. And my family members will protect me, and my nation and my community, or whatever it is, all these fallible soldiers. So the the shadow analogy is given here. I think Plato gives the shadow analogy. So these ancient Greek philosophers, a lot of them had a lot of Vedic realizations like that. Okay, so the idea is to not go for any neighborhood that's going to be destroyed with time. Even at 311 trillion years, it's not even an eye blink compared to our eternal life. Antavanti medeha nityashota shurina shino prameyasya tasmad yugyasva bharata. That only the material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal soul is subject to destruction. That the self within the body can never be destroyed. We get that, then that's fearlessness. Nothing can destroy me. And to the extent that we're trying to take shelter in the shadow world, dream world. Again, it's not that the energy is false. Oh, it's all no. The energy, material energy, is real. The forms it takes and the way we perceive it is temporary and false. Okay, so it's not like, oh, this all doesn't exist. And so, nasato vidyate babo nabaho vidyate satam ubayar apidrishtam tastanios taktadarshibi. Seers of the truth have realized that of the non-existent there's no endurance, and of the existent there's no cessation. This they have realized by studying the nature of both. So the forms and my perceptions, like the form of this body, we can say, yes, so after 80 years, this body will be destroyed. But we know that even that is a false statement. The body, we don't have the exact same body that we had at the beginning of this class. I mean, it might, oh, look, it's the same, but that's our illusion. It's just like a movie spool. Like a movie spool. Each spool is completely separate from the other, but it looks like there's a continuation. So, and then we perceive it in terms of I, me, and mine. I, me, and mine. Right? So yes, I am this body. This is the core illusion. And then, so that's the concentrated bodily conception. Then there's the extended bodily conception. And this is my house. And this is my car, and this is my family, this is my community, like that. And this has nothing to do with the eternal soul. And so fulfillment means we give ourselves to the eternal activity of ourselves, of the eternal soul, rather than, again, just like, well, what's he talking about? I mean, it's so real. This is so real. But the Bhagavatam philosophy is informing us that just like we had dreams last night, and maybe we're remembering something, maybe not, but we've had so many dreams. We've had so many dreams. Hare Krishna Bhakti Patrick, Hare Hare Bol. We've had so many dreams, and okay, we're this character in the dream. Okay. And it's this, Prabhupada uses the word, this phantasmagoria. This phantasmagoria. Just like, oh, I wake up from that dream. And just like, okay, that was just, I thought I was flying like a bird. I thought I was this person who was being chased by a monster. I thought, whatever. But that's, okay, that's not significant. Oh, but this is significant.
Very significant.
This is significant. But that's it. From the point of view of eternity, these identifications are dream life. Now, we can use the temporary to serve the eternal. Okay, I'm in this body. Let me get that I'm not this body. This is ABCs of spiritual life. And Prabhupada again and again, I'm not this body. I'm eternal spirit soul. And so let me use my time in this body with urgency. Let me use my time in this body with urgency to give myself hungry about giving 100%. And that's there at the same time, the one in front of the string of the zeros. Because if we're giving 100% to dream life, then it's not really worth much. It's not really worth much. Right? So again, just like if someone's dreaming, in one sense, well, it's a good dream. But you're not going to get much fulfillment from the dream. It's a bad dream. So that good and bad, that's all relative. Go, wake up to your real life. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. So we read Bhagavatam, we associate with others who are dedicated to spiritual life. And it's just like we're helping each other, supporting each other, maybe sometimes being challenging with each other. Come on, wake up to your real life. Wake up to your real life. And that's the spirit soul engaging in bhakti, devotional service. We engage in bhakti. We engage in bhakti. I always say, okay, we engage in bhakti, and then the natural bliss of the soul awakens. And we say, well, I engage in bhakti, and things become worse. Why are you laughing? Somehow I'm not shocked that you were laughing. But anyhow, so then, because what? Well, it's the basic cleaning the room analogy. It's the basic cleaning the room. Like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna clean my room, and it should take 15 minutes, maybe 20. So then after 15, 20 minutes, I picked up that pillow, and there's three plates with crusted food under the bed, and there's that whole area of the closet I haven't even looked at in 4 years. Oh my God. Okay, so then after 20 minutes, it's worse. It's worse. Like, oh, this is like 2 full days. So, interestingly, we were just talking about this in coach training last night. We were just talking about coach training last night. This came up, and the idea is that by giving ourselves to this bhakti, it's a process of transformation in action. It means through devotional service, then the unwanted things come up, and it might be that if I don't do devotional service, different fear and envy and lust and greed and apathy, different things I might not even be aware of, and then this life ends, and then I take another body, and I didn't get to fully purify my existence as I would if I give myself fully to the process of bhakti. And then it's true, and that which is unwanted, it could certainly come up. So
it's like when we were cleaning the shed, and there were these ants.
So this Atato Brahma Jigyasa, human life is meant for inquiry about these topics that other species they don't get to inquire about. Abrahma Brahmaloka, so that Brahma. So Prabhupada gives some technical discussion about Brahmaloka, Satyaloka. So the Brahmaloka described here is actually the Vaikuntha spiritual planet. But anyhow, so Krishna talks about from Satyaloka, from the plane of Brahma. Krishna says to Arjuna, Abrahma Brahmaloka, Punarvachino Arjuna, Mamu Petya to Kantya. Want some water? Mamu Petya to Kantya, Punar Janma Navijita. From the highest, this is Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, from the highest planet in material world to the lowest, all the neighborhoods, all the compartments, from the highest, lowest, all are temporary places full of misery. Temporary places. Mamu Pitya to Kantya, Dugalayama Shashvatam, temporary place full of misery. Not Nuvanti, Matmana, Samsatim Paramam Gata. So to get that, my My bliss is not within any of these planets. It doesn't mean, this is not a philosophy of, okay, so I need to like try to be spiritual now, suffer like anything, and then I'll go to heaven and enjoy it. It's not that sort of philosophy. We engage in the eternal activity of the soul, and we get to experience the joy of liberation, even within this body. It's not like we need to wait till the body ends. We get to experience the joy of liberation, even within this body. Meaning, there's a verse in the second canto of Bhagavatam, Ayur Harati Vahe Pumsam, that by its rising and setting, the sun reduces the life of everyone, except for one who uses time to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why? Because that's what the soul does in eternity. We serve Krishna with love and devotion. We glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yes. And so the rising and the setting of the sun doesn't diminish the life of a sincere devotee. Because even if we, okay, as you know, a common theme here is that even if we experience the disturbances of like old age and disease and impending death and disturbances coming from others, even our own mind, okay, and then to the extent that we develop that bhakti consciousness, then we're not disturbed by the disturbances. Rather, they become, the so-called disturbances become further impetus to engage in my eternal life. Whereas, okay, like any other like if we're going for any of these other neighborhoods, lower planets, heavenly regions, and this Plakshar Dveep, Pushkar Dveep, Janaloka, Tapal, if we're going for any of these neighborhoods, then whatever activity, we're doomed to fear. And then much of life is numbing the fear. Because even if we get what we want, time's going to crush it. Government's going to take it. Or in just another 150 trillion years, it's all going to be destroyed. Oh no. Okay. Whatever I'm dependent on my sense of satisfaction, fulfillment on a particular relationship, and if it's material, it's going to end. Maybe in 40 years, probably less than that. Right? So it's going to, and then so much of life is trying to numb the pain of that fear, the pain of that terror, that my sense of self and my sense of what makes me worthy and my identity. That's all going to be destroyed. It's all going to be destroyed. And whereas if we engage in the eternal activity of the soul, so I the supreme occupation dharma of all living beings is that by which one can attain to devotional service to the transcendent Lord. Such service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. Okay? So then, see, if we're engaged in that service, then whatever time does, whatever the world does, whatever this person, that person, that's my bliss. I get to engage in devotional service. That's unstoppable. Nothing can get in the way of that. Nothing can get in the way. And then that's really happiness. I know it's not going to be destroyed. And it's only dependent on me creating a consciousness in myself where the only thing I want is devotional service. Then nothing can interfere with it. And that's then the joy and love of the soul naturally awaken. It's described in the Bhagavatam. Etanya vidyamanamam ichitam akatobayam. Yoginam vidyanirnitam haranam anukirtanam. And that, as we were reading this morning before japa, this process of kirtan, yogi, harinama kirtan, engaging in chant, whatever our mixture of desires, spiritual desires, material desires, desiring, I just want to get away from it all. The doubtless and fearless path of success is chanting. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. God, Krishna. Namo Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddha Nityamukto Binatvan Nama Namyo. That Krishna is identical with his name. Krishna is fully present in his name. Prabhupada was so much stressing that what we read this morning, that in our current state, the best sense through which we can get experience of eternity of God is the sense of hearing, and to this the transcendental reading these verses from Bhagavatam, that's hearing the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, that's hearing. And then we're exposing ourselves to sound vibration, where it's sound vibration where the truth it represents, the sound itself is identical to the truth it represents. That's what absolute means, as opposed to material sound. If I'm thirsty and I say, water, I'll notice I'm still thirsty, because water is different than the substance. Water is different than the sound. Krishna is identical in his name. So we get to cultivate God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And the advice here is, don't even go for Jana Loka. These are very attractive places. Don't even go for Satya Loka. Go for Goloka. Go for Loka. And this is a process to do it. This is a process to whatever extent we want to embrace the process. This is the process of fearlessness. What's that?
The planet of the cow.
The planet of the cow. Prabhupada references Bhagavad Gita 8.20. Prastasmatu bhavanyo vyakto vyaktats vyakto vyaktats sanatana. Because Krishna, 8th chapter, Krishna describes basically anything in Gita, it's expanded in Bhagavatam. So Gita describes about these planetary systems. We get a lot more of it here in Bhagavatam, much expanded. So in the 8th chapter, Krishna describes Sastra Yuga Paryantam. He describes, look, there's Brahmaloka, where the entities live for hundreds of trillions of years. And you go, but bhutva praliyate. But ultimately, there's also destruction and rebirth and like that. So Krishna says, go for the Sanatana Dham. Go for Goloka. Go for that place that is beyond time. Just as a side scientific point, this Prabhupada would sometimes appreciate Einstein for his theory of relativity. He would sometimes say, Einstein had the right idea there. And these 14 planetary systems, each planetary system has its own time dimension. And as we go to upper planetary systems, time slows down. That's evident in pastimes like Brahma stealing the cowherd boys, or Markandeya Rishi traveling backwards in time in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam. There's a story of King Sujumna. He had a lot of powers, and he wanted a husband for his daughter, and he wanted a husband. So he visited Brahma to get a husband for his daughter. He had some special audience. So he goes, but then he said, oh, you can't see Brahma now. He's listening to some musical concert by the Gandharvas, some recreational time. So I said, okay, so whatever. So he waits like half an hour. So he said, Brahma, yeah, I want a husband for my daughter. So Brahma just starts laughing. He goes, look, it's like anyone, any of the princes or anyone who knew anyone who knew anyone who knew anyone who you knew has been dead and gone for like tens of millions of years. And he's like, what? I've just been here for half an hour. Right, so half an hour there gets to be like billions of years here, like that. So there's lots of time travel. And just like theory of relativity that Einstein gave, as one goes faster, time slows down, things become more dense, things like that.
Half an hour in Brahmaloka, and then he comes back here in Kali Yuga.
Yeah, he came back here. Things were quite different. And then, as described here, so Vaikuntha, Goloka, time is conspicuous by its absence. Right? Krishna says, Kalosmi, Profita, Lokashaya, time I am, destroyer of the world. So material time just destroys everything. Spiritual realm, past, present, and future. There's no material past, present, and future. Each moment exists eternally. And we get realization of that as we practice Bhakti Yoga. Hare Krishna. All right. So the verse reads, Grivayam Janalokosya Tapolokastananadvaya Mordhabi Satyalokastu Brahmalokasanatana. From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janaloka and Tapaloka, where Satyaloka, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal. Hare Krishna, thanks for listening. Thanks for your presence and attention. And I welcome anyone who would like to share realization, comments, or ask questions.
I have 2 personal questions.
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Am I happy? Yeah.
Yes. So how long did it take you to get there?
Well, I mean, I'm not so resonant with the closed-ended form of the question.
Yeah.
Because I could also answer, no, I'm terribly depressed.
You don't look like terribly depressed.
And so that's like you're giving me an alternate choice, so I have to choose happy. So I would say for me it's a process. It's not like I'm there. Once I tell her to I'm completely confident that if I continue following this process, that as my life goes on into eternity, my state of being now, where I have so many material attachments and illusions, and just like, that's pretty depressed condition of life. But, based on my kind of normal assessment of what it means to be happy, I feel quite happy and free. And I've been through and I go through severe tribulations. And so, for me, it's been a process. I would say going back about 45 years. I'm here in this body more or less for 59 years, but maybe it was around age 14, 15 that I started thinking about things. And then I became really depressed. And then, awakening to some self-realization, this and that. And so my hopefulness, an analogy I gave that's true for me, since you asked me a personal question, is like I'm so happy. And I don't know if it's happy or call it fulfillment. I'm so happy that I found or that this doubtless and fearless way of this path called Bhakti Yoga, that I found it, which might be arrogant. It found me, whatever. But just that it exists, and just like it's kind of like wandering in this dense forest. But I know where the path is, and still I'm wandering in the forest a lot. More and more as my life goes on, I'm getting like stop this nonsense and get on that path. And even when I'm not on the path, just knowing that it's there, whereas at a previous time in life, it was just, well, I quote this verse from Shakespeare sometimes. Life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So each word of that verse just gets bleaker and bleaker. Okay, like life is just blah, 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 blah. It is meaningless, empty, existence, full of sound and fury. Whoa, signifying nothing. So that was my life before.
What is Puri?
Was that fury? Fury is dramatic. It could be anger, passion, like that, signifying nothing. So emptiness, nihilism, nothingness, being in nothingness, nausea. John Paul Sartre wrote a whole book called Nausea. Sad to say, I read it. So I had a whole period of life like that. Yeah. So being on the Bhakti path, I'm happy, and I would say I'm practically never on it like with full purity, but even when I'm distant from it, just to know I know where to go for my happiness, and that itself is a source of peace. Next question.
Thank you. But the second part was like, how long did it take you to get to this place of like feeling happy that the path exists?
Okay. Okay. I guess I'm speaking again. Okay. So how long get me? I would just say I'm more in that place now than I was 10 years ago, and so I'm just more and more appreciating this this process of bhakti yoga, of Krishna consciousness that Prabhupada has given us as years go on. So I would say, from the beginning it was there. From the beginning when I started chanting Hare Krishna, which was when I was backpacking around Europe in the summer of '83. I wouldn't say it was so much there when the only service I was doing was taking Prashant before that. What I'm saying is, I've always had mental disturbances and different anxieties like that. And I would say that I experience myself as increasingly transcendental to them as my life goes on, and that's connected with appreciating the full availability of this process. Full availability means nothing can get in the way of me choosing that. And because of my foolishness, I don't choose it, but so that's my response.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ladini.
Yes. So my question is, one, what is the Virat universal form, and what does it mean that it's an imagination when it's like described in so much detail about what planet is where, but then it says that it's an imagination?
Thanks for your question. Thank you. So yes, like we gave the principle that pretty much what's there in Bhagavad Gita is expanded upon in the Bhagavatam. So this section of Bhagavatam and many other sections are an expansion of the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. The 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita is called the universal form, and a word for that is the Virat Purusha. So the Virat means the universal form. So it's a form of God, it's a form of Krishna, and it's basically a way, and I would say that the fundamentals of it are given in the 11th chapter of Gita. The fundamentals of it are that it is a way for us to realize spirit and God through matter. So for example, we hear things like the birds. The birds are the artistic sense of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the colorful birds and like that. The rivers are the veins of God. So it's a way that so we see beautiful birds and we say, wow, that's cool, that's so beautiful. Okay, and that's nice, appreciating nature, and then appreciating, just like we might appreciate a beautiful painting of a landscape or something. But then say, wow, who is that painter? So it's giving the universal form. It's sort of like a way that we can begin to see spirit and God through matter. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Rasoham apsukuntiya, I am the taste of water. So whenever we taste water, we can remember God. Prabhasmi sasi suryayo, I am the light of the sun and the moon. Whenever we experience light of sun and moon, okay, that's an energy of God. So it's an elaborate way that different philosophers, it's a bridge to God consciousness through matter. It's called the universal form.
And so you said it's a way that philosophers have described Krishna or Krishna's universal form. So it's not like an actual form of Krishna, like there's Nrsimhadev, there's Jagannath, there's Krishna, all the different trillion Vishnus. It's not like an actual form that Krishna takes. It's almost like a poetic way of describing the material to relate the material back to Krishna.
It is. You're correct. I mean, it's like it is a poetic way. At the same time, it's a poetic way that Krishna himself gives us to help us understand the Godhead, helps us understand him. It's a poetic, imaginary way that for those who are kind of attached to matter and maybe we're not ready to realize God's form, okay, here, take your attachment to matter and here are some tips. When you drink water, Shabdake, when you hear any sound, Krishna says, I am ability in me. Whenever anyone's greatly talented in anything, whether it's art, athletics, or intellectual endeavor, then, okay, like the essence of that is God. So it is a poetic way. At the same time, it's given to us by Krishna. Thank you, Ezra.
I experienced the universal form and the different description and the idea of the universal form to be so reassuring. Of course, there is that, like seeing Krishna in nature, and also it seems like we are in the body of Krishna. We are always with Krishna and in the body of Krishna. And I found those descriptions so reassuring, comforting, and really allowing that reality of being within Krishna at every moment to manifest.
It's sheltering.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Danielle, you had a comment or question?
I do, but I also just want to touch base with what Eze and Malini and you were sharing just now. It occurs to me that Krishna is a color blue we can't see, but we paint him as blue because that helps us kind of get in contact with his form a little better. And we do paint him, and he is not obviously a painting, and we have statues of Prabhupada and Krishna, and they are not statues, but it's a way of kind of hooking into understanding them, even though they're not physically in their full radiance in front of us. Is the Virat Rupa like that, the Virat Purusham?
Thanks for your sharing, Danielle. There's a distinction.
Okay.
There's a distinction. Because, okay, if we manifest a form of Krishna through painting, or a form of Krishna or our pure devotee spiritual master through material element of wood or clay, and if we do it in full alignment with Shabda Brahman, in full alignment with the descriptions of the form of Krishna coming down through the parampara, then Krishna fully appears in that form. Krishna fully appears in that form. So just like Krishna is non-different from his name, Krishna is non-different from his deity form. That's assuming that the deity form is actually a deity it's not created through some speculation. But it's actually just like, okay, like it's described in Brahma Samhita, Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalaya Taksham Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govinda Madi Pusham Tamaham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who's adept at playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head bedecked with a peacock feather, whose whose figure of beauty is tinged with the hue of dark blue rain clouds, and whose unique loveliness is charming millions of cupids. So these are authorized descriptions coming from Brahma. These are authorized descriptions coming from the Vedas. And if we create a form of Krishna that's exactly according to those descriptions, and Prabhupada gave us guidelines on how to do that, then Krishna is fully, it's not just the deity form or the Murti of Prabhupada. They represent God. They represent Prabhupada. No, Prabhupada's fully present in his Murti form. Krishna is fully present in his deity form. And so it's actually that the wood or the brass or the painting, it's actually not matter. We might see it as matter, and we get purified as we look on that spiritual form. So that's why, yeah, it's kind of the same principle as universal form, and it's also distinct. It's also different. Thank you for that, Daniel.
I think the distinction is recognized by the way the energy of Krishna are separated.
Yeah.
Like the multi-form will be internal energy of the Lord.
Yes.
While the universal form will be the external energy of the
Yeah.
Lord. Instead, the external energy of the Lord.
Thanks for that.
That's really helpful for clarification for me. I really appreciate you expounding on that a little deeper.
Thank you, Daniel.
I also wanted just to share briefly that you and Malini supporting me particularly and some of us in the community to memorize verses was really shocking to me this morning, because today's the first time you ever said a verse and I was like, wait a second. Dehinos mi atadehe. I was like, wait, I know that one. Like it was interesting because I felt more involved, and I also experienced myself as understanding more deeply what you were saying, because I had spent time with the verse and internalized it with the Sanskrit in a way that I had never before. So it went from kind of a dry exercise to really understanding why learning the verses can be so powerful, even if I don't intend to share them with anyone else. Just hearing them in context was very rich for me. Yeah.
I'm very inspired to hear that. Yeah, I'm glad we suggested to some members of the community, memorize some verses. Memorize a school, but you're seeing like it's not just some dry homework assignment, that you're experiencing, that this is deepening your realization, your experience, your relationship with the philosophy, like the verses that it's deepening your personal connection with Krishna's words, with Bhagavad Gita, and the whole experience is more alive for you because you did the mental and intellectual austerity to learn some verses.
Yes, and then in relationship to this specific lecture this morning, I am reminded of a English class I was in. I was in an English class, and the professor wanted us to do some research paper, and he started off the lecture, unfortunately, talking about facts, and he asked us what facts were, which with me in the room meant it was a philosophy discussion. And I had recently been in a science class. I was in a science class, and we were talking about, Pluto's a planet. That was a fact, and not so much anymore. And of course, the theory of relativity and how things appear, because he's like, well, things are true if you can observe them as true. And I'm like, well, not so much, and I was able to articulate myself clearly. And then having spent some time with Socrates and Plato, I kind of, without even having like a formal, education or any understanding of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, there was an emphasis for me on things that I know because I know them, because they're intrinsically within me. One of the reasons Socrates was so clear about God is he recognized there was no perfection here. There was zero perfection in the material realm, and yet we understood perfection inherently. We could understand that we were eternal, even though there was no eternality here that he could observe. And I think that really relates to what we're talking about here with the Srimad Bhagavatam and the Bhagavad Gita. It sounds far out.
That's right.
Try and understand it from a scientific perspective in the case of like, okay, let's just observe, eternality. Let's just go ahead and get some perfection and like study it. It's impossible. So when hearing about these outlandish stories of time differentials and like somebody who was here before any of us was here and will be here forever, you know, that's each one of us. It just seems impossible. And at the same time, I know it to be true. And if I know it to be true, maybe that is reality. So I appreciate you going into more specifics about it, and especially this verse outlining the map of all of reality, including the spiritual reality. I still don't understand any of it, but I am very encouraged to continue participating in the process of trying.
Thanks for sharing, Danielle. Thank you. Thank you. Anandini,
Yes, I have a question. So,
if you could be a little closer to the microphone.
okay, is it better?
Yeah, that's better.
So, like Srimad Bhagavatam and Srila Prabhupada and the Goswamis, they all advertise for Goloka Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Like, and then there's description of the heavenly planets and the Vaikuntha planets. And for me, I can relate in some little ways or have some idea what a heavenly planet could be like.
Yeah.
And it's very attractive. Like there's kirtan, there's devotees, there's beauty. It's very attractive to me, and it's something I can kind of have an idea what that would be like.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, and then there's Vaikuntha, which is beyond my imagination, and then there's even Goloka Vrindavan, which is beyond. So
yes.
What is going, and I trust, so for some reason Prabhupada is advertising for Vrindavan. But what is going to awaken like a desire to go there for me? I can see desires to go to the heavenly planets, but to really, I mean, I'm curious about Vrindavan.
Curious.
Something already.
Yes.
But what is going to actually give me like a real desire to go there?
Thanks for asking and sharing, Anandini. I mean, in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, there's a verse, na tad basayo suryo na shashiko na pavaka yadgatfa na divartante tatama paramam mama. And Krishna talks about the spiritual planets. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes, one should be captivated by this information. It's like a travel brochure. So my understanding is the more we hear, then the more we get that desire beyond curiosity. The more we hear, like, because hear and apply our intellect. I too am attracted to the heavenly and planets and the material planets like Janaloka and Satyaloka. And then it's just like, well, that sounds pretty good to me. You like that? For sure. And then the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada, they're trying to get us like, okay, and even there, like qualitatively, it might be a higher level of enjoyment and less severe suffering. But even there, the inherent miseries of material existence are there. And so at least, maybe it's like, well, still, that sounds pretty good to me, you know, very good. But the idea is at least intellectually to get that to be trapped in any sort of body, even a heavenly body, where there's some kirtan, that's eventually subject to old age, disease, birth, or even we hear, even the upper planets, they sometimes get attacked by the demoniac hordes, and there's interpersonal strife, so that to be in any sort of material body, like even to philosophically get that, then that's like part of the process to develop the soul's natural desire to completely get out of material existence and awaken our love for Krishna.
So that's intellectually, and experientially, would you say that's that attraction awakens the more we get an experience of ourselves beyond any like material identifications, roles, masks?
Okay, yeah.
Hi Krishna. I have had a lot of attraction for the heavenly planets too. And then since my baby died, it went like that down. And a few days ago, we went with Malini to the springs here. And it was so beautiful. And I thought like, wow, like if like the heavenly planets, like everything is so beautiful there. I got so afraid because I could see my attraction. And I really like, I don't want to be anywhere when it's like birth, death, old age, even if it's like in trillion of lifetimes and there is kirtan. And so maybe it can be also opposite, like not like having the experience of like how wonderful Vaikuntha is, but really how miserable this is. That's like my process in like that being less attracted to the heavenly planets with unicorns and dolphins and springs and things like this.
Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, I appreciate very much the discussion and what you said on Nandini. Like, yeah, we get an experience of ourselves, because it's described that even like a drop of the bliss that comes from devotional service is just millions of times greater than even impersonal liberation, and that's millions of times greater than the heavenly planet pleasure. So I resonate with what you say to the extent that we get realization that I am nothing material, I'm the spirit soul, then anything material, even a much nicer neighborhood, just becomes uninteresting.
Yeah. I believe that hearing about the heavenly planet and the heavenly pleasures there is a way for us to check in. We check in like, okay, because last night I was reading about, Prabhupada was speaking of Markata Vairagya, like the renunciation of the monkeys. And he says some people, they take sannyas, but they don't really have anything to renounce. And then really it's a way to increase your sense gratification. So it's easy to renounce the material energy when it's suffering. Like I don't like my situation, I don't like my relationship, I'm poor, I don't have money, and so I'm going to renounce. So that's easy. And then by hearing about the heavenly planets, we have also an opportunity to check, okay, well, yeah, I can renounce now, but what if I had a better life? What if I had better relationship? What if I had like a good bank account? Will I be also renounced? And then by hearing about because nobody enters the spiritual world with any tinge of material desire. So it's like by hearing about the heavenly planet, we get to face like, yes, I want to renounce, I want spiritual life because I'm so miserable. But if my life was changing, or if I was in a heavenly planet, then I would be happy. And so that's in a sense, Maya is manifesting herself in so many ways, including the heavenly planets and the role of the acharyas and the role of all our teachers is to support us to really clear ourselves from every material desire. And by imagining the heavenly planet, we get to check in with ourselves how much material desire we have still left. And not being an illusion that I don't have material desire because, in fact, I don't have material desire because I'm suffering so much.
Right.
Yeah.
It's described as the devotional soul goes back to Godhead, then they are offered, they're tempted. It's like when I make a pit stop on Gandharva Loka, just look how nice it is. And then and if we have any temptation there, then it might be another birth on Siddhaloka or Tapaloka.
You just have to close your eyes.
Gajendra Prabhu, did you have a comment? I thought I saw his hand. Okay.
Yeah, it's just exactly what I was saying when we were at the springs. I was just thinking about this, like going back to Godhead, and there is like the stops.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah, when I just want to serve Krishna, Goloka Vrindavan. It's like, oh, but a nice day at the springs, that couldn't hurt.
Exactly.
That's it.
So I'm really thinking about Chad Bharat, and he's like dead and pretending he's dead and blind not to see any of it. So I hope, and damp also. So I hope that like the spirit soul can have the eyelids, so it's I can close the eyes on the way. It's like, which means there is so many stories about like the people like sailing boats, and there is like the islands with the women like that like pretend they are a beautiful woman and they are singing, and then
The sirens, the sirens.
yeah, and then they kill them. So you have to like, because nobody can resist. And then like if they are proud, like of course I will resist. We just like, but if they close their ears, that works. So it's like
But Ulysse himself, he decided to be tied to the mast and to not close his ears because he wanted to really test how much he could like detach from the attraction.
I didn't know that part. So anyway, so I'm like so like inspired by Chatparat. It's like it's so fascinating for me to like just like I don't want to like see any of these attractions. Yeah.
Yes. Well, so that's so many prayers of the devotees. Like yeah, just give me pure desire where like those attractions are no longer attractions. And that's the prayer of the devotee. Let me only be attracted to serve you. Let me, may that be in heaven, hell, Vaikuntha, wherever, whichever neighborhood. Bhakti Patrick.
It seems that the real, at least in the name, the real distinction between Vaikuntha and heavenly planets is the anxiety, because Vaikuntha means without anxiety. So the heavenly planets, there's still anxiety, and it seems that anxiety is not dependent on any kind of material thing at all. Someone could have a lot of material enjoyment and happiness and possessions and be in more anxiety than someone who doesn't have anything at all. So it seems that anxiety is constant and universal.
That's the key factor of material existence.
And it doesn't matter how much you're enjoying, because you're enjoying and everything's very nice, and you're afraid that it's going to stop. Like my children, I think, oh, what if they die?
It could be taken away.
Everything's so nice. Oh God, it's going to end. And so it seems to me, in the heavenly planets, the topmost heavenly planet, there's anxiety that could be just as bad or worse as here.
That's a fact, and that's described in the Bhagavatam.
And I just heard this Prabhupada lecture. Indra is suffering. King Indra, the king of the heavenly planet, he is suffering. So the king of the heavenly planets, he's defeated sometimes. He's humiliated. Things are stolen from him.
Yes.
He gets
envious.
He gets envious. He gets defeated. So he has. I'm just.
Anxiety.
And he's full of anxiety. He's probably, I don't know what's happening for him. But so I just say that. I mean, I don't have anything to.
Well, that's early in the class. That was our focus. That even if things are going so-called well materially, we know at some level. Like Danielle was speaking about intrinsic knowledge. We know at some level this is going to be destroyed. I'm an eternal being. I will not be happy in this shadow pseudo enjoyment. It's going to be destroyed. So that's anxiety. And devotional service, it's like my only attachment is to serve Krishna and his pure devotee. Then there's knowing that's all I want. I might be honored. I might be insulted. I might have good health. I might have bad health. My family members, this or that. My economics, this or that. My only desire to serve Krishna with love and devotion. Nothing can take that away ever, ever, ever. That's life without anxiety.
When you shared in the class that the people on the heavenly planets, they have like a trillion years lifetime, I thought like, oh my God, that's so terrible. And I'm thinking like, if it's like someone here on this planet, if you say like, oh, you can live for 1 trillion years if you want to, like who would say, oh yes, I want it. Like, I don't think I know anyone, because everyone kind of knows like this is so much suffering that like get like 1 trillion more years of that. That's that attractive.
That's why I described it. Many demigods, they're waiting in line to take birth like for a 50 or 70 year life in Lord Chaitanya's movement, rather than do their tens of thousands or trillions of years, and then get bewildered because it's too nice. And this is a good opportunity. Earth, there's just like a right mix of enough suffering and not too much suffering, compared to some hellish planets. And the 50, 60 year Sankirtan movement, Sir Prabhupada's movement, finished. Vakunta.
I can complete, I think, to complete myself. So there's that fact. And then for me personally, I don't have anything with the geography. I can't, it's not authentic for me to be like endeavoring for heaven or Goloka or anything like that. But it's very real to be relieved from anxiety. That's very real for me.
A very, very real desire.
Yeah, to be free from anxiety. If that's Vaikunta, that's a place, and if I can have that experience now, so that's what I think of. And if Goloka is the best place for that, then okay, let me endeavor for that. But the main thing is, to be free from anxiety, and so that's an attractive thing for me. That can help me from the heaven getting distracted by the heavenly planets. Is like the free from anxiety.
This distraction by liberation.
Is there anxiety and liberation? Because I would be good with that too.
Yeah.
But and then also wanted to share that in the class you mentioned that just we just have devotional service, just that desire. It's easy if we just have the devotional service, and it is very easy. If it's like I noticed that process is very simple and easy. If I'm just eating only prasadam and I'm reading Prabhupada's books and hearing Prabhupada's lectures, and it's very easy. And it's like, but what's hard is to always be doing those things.
To be steady.
That's what's hard. It's following the four regular principles. Oh, it's easy if I'm just eating prasadam and I'm listening to Prabhupada and I'm reading Prabhupada. That's easy. But then, but to actually have that life structure, that's
for our conditioned mind, senses, and ego, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Common saying in personal growth circles: if we're only ready to do what's easy, life will be hard. If we're ready to do what's hard, life will be easy. So for the soul, this is the life of the soul: transcendental sound vibration, and then devotional service. But for our conditioned mind and senses, it's an austerity, and it's a struggle. And a basic principle is everyone is struggling, and then the devotional austerity, that's a worthwhile struggle. Otherwise, it's full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnu Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
So we can start